Star Wars Young Jedi Knights Troll on Cloud City Chapter 13. Tenelka's normally alert mind went numb with shock as Jason plummeted out of reach. She hung precariously, still dangling in the Wookiee's strong grasp. She could have fallen any instant, but for a full 100 heartbeats she could only stare down into the sea of clouds that swallowed her friend Jason. At his side she fought dark Jedi, vicious beasts, bounty hunters, assassins, and misguided patriots. But never, even in her wildest nightmares, had she imagined that he could be taken from her like this, lost in an instant to gravity and some nebulous foe against whom she'd never even had an opportunity to fight. The sharp pain in her arm did not come close to matching the wretched pain in her heart. But it did bring her back to reality. Loie groaned in weariness and despair. Tenelka's booted feet flailed in the air. The only thing that kept her from sharing Jason's fate was Lobaka's strong grip on her one good arm. But that would not last forever. For a split second, she considered letting go, plunging after Jason into the clouds. At least that would leave Lobaka, and she wouldn't have to live with the guilt of knowing this had all indirectly been her fault. She wouldn't have, at least that would save Lobaka. A long time ago, she hadn't been trying so hard to impress Jason when they first built their lightsabers. Her pride would not have let her fight him with a substandard weapon. It would not have led to the accident which her arm had been lost, an arm that would have been there to save Jason from his fall, if it had not been for her own foolishness. She should have been there to catch him. Tenelka had failed Jason. Why had she simply not told him how much his friendship meant to her? Tenelka's sweaty hand slipped in Loie's grasp. With a harsh bark of warning, Lobaka extended his razor-sharp Wookiee claws and dug them deep into her arm. He would not let her fall. She winced, distracted from her torturous thoughts, and welcomed the pain that brought her mind back to sharp reality. The warrior girl looked up into Loie's golden eyes and saw the reflection of her own anguish. Something more. Determination. Determination to stay alive. Determination not to lose another friend. Determination to warn Jaina, Zeke, and Lando that their lives were in danger, too. Determination to find whoever had done this and bring them to justice. Blood trickled from the deep wounds where Lobaka's talons clung fiercely into her skin. And though the force, she felt his resolve flow into her like the warm blood that poured down her arm. The wind made her reddish-brown gold braids whip wildly around her and caught at the droplets of blood, spattering them across her face. Braids of a warrior, the blood of a princess. Tenelka gritted her teeth. She would not fall, and she would not allow Jason's murderers to go free. Her eyes still locked with Lobaka, she used the force to steady herself. I am ready. The Wookiee, who had one arm wrapped around the sturdy antenna that protruded from the bottom of the city's structure, pulled himself upward with that arm until he was able to grasp with his strong legs around a crossbar. With both hands freed, he pulled her up by one arm and grasped her around the waist with the other. Then, shaking from the strain, he curled upward towards the antenna as if sitting up, lifting weights simultaneously until Tenelka could grasp the center bar of the antenna herself. When he withdrew his claws from her arm, the gush of blood made the antenna slippery and harder to hold onto, and though Tenelka hardly noticed, she quickly hooked a leg over the crossbar and helped Lobaka pull himself upright. After several long moments, they clung to the antenna, shuddering from their efforts. Finally, Tenelka drew a deep breath. Thank you, Lobaka, my friend. Let us continue. Loie roared and pointed up to the chute through which they had fallen. Tenelka looked and saw with despair that the hatch had closed behind them. You are correct, my friend. We seem to be stranded. A split second later, the hatch mysteriously slid open of its own accord. Lobaka gave a triumphant bellow. They would still need to find a way to climb inside the sheer tube, but the first hurdle had been overcome. As the true Jedi struggled to standing position on the antenna crossbar, a familiar silver ovoid hovered down through the open disposal chute. Oh, thank the Maker! Master Lobaka, Mistress Jaina, you're alive! Do make haste. I'm not certain how long I can keep this access hatch open. Tenelka fumbled with the pouch clipped at her waist and removed the grappling hook and fiber cord. Oh, excellent idea, MTD said. There is a ledge exactly 3.7 meters above you where an air vent feeds into this disposal tube. Tenel Ka feigned a strange lighthead sensation as she attempted to swing the grappling hook for her throw. Her fingers were bloody, and the hook slipped from her grasp as she made the toss. Lobaka's hand shot out and snatched the cord before the hook could fall. Tenel Ka saw this as if from a great distance. The Wookiee then secured one arm around her waist and the antenna, while he used the other hand to draw the grappling hook, swing, and make the throw. The hook caught and held firm. "Excellent shot, Master Lobaka," EMTD said. Wherever could Master Jason be?" An angry Wicco bellow exploded beside Tenel Ka's ear, but didn't matter. A curtain of soft darkness descended on her mind, and she remembered nothing more. Anja had everything back under control. She had reminded herself of her priorities and her goals, of who she was and who her enemies were. She felt refreshed, invigorated, ready to take on anyone or anything. She was once again convinced that she had not befriended Jason, Jaina, and their associates. She was merely using them to get to Han Solo. Well, perhaps she had slipped a bit and begun to think that their silly belief in the Force might actually give them some advantage, some power that she didn't possess. But the sentiment had been short-lived. Everything seemed so much clearer to her now. She was completely self-sufficient. Ana Galandro needed nothing and no one except Ana Galandro. She had her wits, her intuition, her reflexes, and that made her every bit as good as a Jedi Knight. As these comforting thoughts filled her mind, a heavy knock sounded on the door to her quarters. She hurriedly swept all the private belongings off the sleeping pad and back into the satchel from which they had come hours earlier, including the empty spice vial. She stepped to the refresher unit and stuffed the satchel into a corner before answering the knock. She waved her hand over open switch, and the door slid past aside with a hiss. Lobaka, Tenel Ka, and EMTD practically fell into the room. EMTD's casing had been badly scratched. Tenel Ka's arm seeped blood from several deep wounds, and Loe's ginger fur stuck wildly in all directions. Startled as if to see them in this bedraggled condition, Anja was determined not to lose her composure again. She raised her eyebrows and tried for some humor. "I see you've come to appreciate my opinion of Ugnaughts." "You were right not to come with us," Tenel Ka said in a weak voice. Her eyelids drooped, and Anja could see now the Wookiee was supporting most of the warrior girl's weight. Blood dripped from Tenel Ka's wounds on the floor. "It was a trap!" EMTD said. "Curse my foolish circuits! I should have seen it earlier!" Lobaka growled. "Oh yes!" EMTD translated. "And Mistress Tenel requires immediate medical assistance. Immediate!" "Trap!" Tenel Ka echoed. Her face was pale, her breathing ragged. Loe picked up the warrior girl and gently deposited her on a sleeping pallet. Anja pushed a button in the comm unit beside the door. "Emergency medical team to room 0914. "Request acknowledged," a droid voice replied. "Estimated arrival 2.4 minutes. Anja nodded and turned back towards the two Jedi. "So where's Jason?" she asked. "Torturing the Ugnaughts by telling them jokes?" Loe leaned back against the wall and crooned a strange note that Anja had never heard before from a Wookiee. Tenel Ka did not reply, but tears appeared from beneath her eyelids. Anja guessed that the pain must be terrible, because she had never seen the warrior girl betray any emotion whatsoever. The Wookiee crooning grew louder. The miniaturized translating droid spoke in an oddly hushed voice. "If Master Lobaka were capable of making any reply, he would regretfully inform you that Master Jason is dead." With that, the little droid fell silent and hovered fretfully between the Wookiee and the warrior girl, as if trying to comfort them. Ridiculous, Anja thought. Jason could not be dead. She had only seen him a few hours ago. This had to be someone's idea of a joke. But Loe's eerie crooning and Tenel Ka's tears convinced her that something terribly had indeed occurred, more surely than words could have. In subdued tones, the translating droid explained what had taken place. Anja was not prepared for the storm of conflicting emotions that swept through her: anger, guilt, hopelessness, loss, despair. Jason had not deserved to die. He had befriended Anja, amused her, taught her, defended her, learned from her, saved her life. He had been there for Anja. That's what friends are for, he said. But she had not been there for him. An even worse thought now occurred to her. She might actually have caused Jason's death. Just as she had always told Zethros she would do someday, given the chance. That had been a lie. She hadn't really meant to. Not really. But Anja herself had told Zethros of the young Jedi Knight's arrival in Cloud City and what they were investigating. Now Loe and Tenel Ka were wounded, and Jason was dead. If Anja knew Zethros, and she thought she did, these events were not unrelated. That meant Zethros did have something to do with Kojan's death, and that Anja's friends had come too close to finding out about it. She had no one to blame but herself. Her chest began heaving, and deep wordless sobs wrenched from her throat. She had lied. She had lied to Zethros. She had lied to herself. Jason had been her friend. Why should he be dead now? An icy knife of anguish plunged deep into Anja's heart. Hot tears spilled onto her cheeks. She stumbled backward into the refresher unit and shut the door tightly behind her. Racking sobs shook her as she scrambled to the corner for what she needed, what she had to have. There was no choice. The spice would help her. A minute later, when the emergency medical team arrived at the door to her quarters, Anja came out of the refresher unit and let them in. She was controlled now, full of energy. But nothing could dull the pain.